BBC Radio 1.
Right, I'm masked up, got my 6-month supply of toilet roll. What else do I need?
Everyone and their nan is talking about it at the moment. Panic buying, self-isolating, and dirty looks at anyone who coughs within a metre of you. Fair to say there's a lot of worry and a lot of confusion.
So, coronavirus, what are the facts?
So let's start at the beginning. Scientists are looking at whether one of these may have passed the virus onto a human. If you didn't know, it's a pangolin, obvs. Our best guess is that the virus spread from a bat to one of these and then somehow to a human. It spreads from person to person, so things like coughing, sneezing, or having a cheeky snog. The first cases were found in a Chinese city called Wuhan at the end of last year. The World Health Organization called it a pandemic when the number of cases outside China started increasing quickly.
So when we talk about coronavirus, we're actually talking about the disease, COVID-19. The big deal about it is that it's new, so nobody has immunity to it yet, and it's likely we won't get a vaccine until next year. There's no cure yet, but scientists are working on treatments.
I'm Chris Smith. I'm also the naked scientist and a consultant virologist at the University of Cambridge.
Okay, so what people need to look out for is the first symptoms of coronavirus. Can you tell us what they are?
Yep. The majority of people get a fever, so a high temperature. Some of them get a cough, but then as the disease develops, both become more common. So about 88 to 90% of people by the end of this will have a fever. The vast majority will have a dry cough, and then there are some other symptoms. About half of people have a sore throat and a runny nose, and some people have things like diarrhea and vomiting as well.
So quite difficult to tell because it's pretty similar to flu.
Absolutely right. It's almost the same set of symptoms that you get with the whole gambit of infections that are going around at this time of year.
So if someone has coronavirus, how long can they expect to be ill for?
The incubation period is about 5 days, and during that time you won't know that you're ill, obviously, but then the symptoms generally come on. As the symptoms come on, they generally get more intense over about a 3 to 5 day period. About a fifth of people who catch this will have symptoms that go on for longer, and some people will get symptoms that go on for longer and are more severe, others less so. If you're ill for longer, it could be a couple of weeks before you're feeling better.
So the sad reality of this outbreak is that people are dying, and that means real upset that we just can't get away from. From the global data we have so far, we think it's serious for about 1 in 5 people who get it, and it kills about 1 in 100.
Who's most vulnerable to coronavirus?
The people who are vulnerable to it and have an additional risk are people who are older. And what we know at the moment is anyone who actually is beyond the age of 40, you start to see your risk increase. Anyone who has a pre-existing health condition is also at higher risk, and that means people who have heart problems, high blood pressure problems, diabetes, kidney disease, and chest problems, including people who've smoked a lot.
About 1/5 of people we think so far have pretty bad experience with it, but how many people are sort of recovering and doing okay?
We only know so far how many people have recovered as a proportion of all the ones we've tested, because you've got to remember that we don't test everybody. So there's probably very large numbers of people actually catching this, and we don't know about them. So we don't really know the accurate answer to that question. But of the people we've tested, more than half have now completely recovered and they're absolutely fine. And there are people in the UK who have had this and have recovered and are absolutely fine.
All this talk about pandemic might make you think you'll definitely get it. That's not the case. And there are easy things you can do to lower your chances.
So the main advice is simple. You know when you're about 17 and you told your mum you're going to your mate's house, and now you've got to scrub that nightclub stamp off your hand? Yeah, me neither. Anyway, wash your hands really, really thoroughly.
Wash your hands with soap and hot water for the length of time it takes to sing Happy Birthday twice.
Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday dear Kirsty, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday dear Kirsty, happy birthday to you.
So apart from what you can do, the government have an overall strategy.
You can check on 111 online for updates on the government's advice. Generally, if you have even mild symptoms, stay at home. If you start to feel worse, ring 111.
A main part of the plan is to keep people as far away from each other as possible. It's called self-isolation. Doesn't mean you go to the other end of the country, probably just your bedroom. It's not only to protect you, but it's to stop you spreading it to other vulnerable people. The idea is that we slow down when the real peak is so the NHS can cope better. For a lot of people, the health impact will be less of a problem than the knock-on effects on our everyday life. So things like schools and unis shutting down, working from home, and trying to get around if public transport's not running properly. We'll just have to deal with these things best we can, but when can we expect to get back to normal life?
Really tricky to say, because what we know is at the moment, everyone's potentially able to catch this. We know that it's spreading very fast because it's a very infectious virus. We know that probably about 4/5 of people in the country this season are going to catch this. Now, how long it then takes to continue rippling on for, we don't know. We're probably going to see a peak in the numbers of cases sometime around about May or June. And obviously from then on, it doesn't mean it suddenly disappears. It will slowly peter out, but it could be a few months yet.
How practically will it end? Does it mean we'll all become immune to it, or will we all get it and recover?
I think, based on what we know about this family of viruses, and there are already 4 coronaviruses that infect humans, and they circulate every winter and they cause the common cold. I suspect that this virus will just join the family. And what will happen is that in the future, you'll catch it when you're young, just another cold that we get when we're little. Children we know are having very trivial symptoms with this, so it'll just be a winter cold, and then you'll be immune for life. So I think the long-term consequence for this is going to be that it's something that we pick up when we're young, we become immune to it, we don't get it again, and so the number of older people who are at risk is going to be really vanishingly small. So I think it'll cease to be a really big headache in the future.